Marcus Johnson stood in the sleek, glass-walled conference room, the city skyline stretching out behind him like a canvas waiting for vibrant colors. His heart raced as he adjusted his tie and glanced at the blueprints spread out before him, a revolutionary design for a community center that he had poured his soul into. Each line, each curve, told a story of hope and resilience. He had envisioned a space where families could gather, where children could learn and play, and where the community could reconnect. Across the table sat Richard Thompson, a powerful client known for his wealth and influence in the architectural world. Richard's sharp, calculating eyes scrutinized Marcus's work with a level of skepticism that made Marcus's stomach churn. The air was thick with tension as Marcus took a deep breath, summoning the courage to present his vision. "Mr. Thompson," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the flutter of anxiety in his chest. "This design integrates sustainable materials and community-driven features. It's not just a building. It's a space that will foster connections and elevate the neighborhood." Richard leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. "I appreciate your passion, Marcus, but I have to be honest. I'm concerned about your experience." He paused, a faint smirk playing on his lips. "This project requires a level of expertise that I'm not sure you possess." Marcus felt the color drain from his face. "I understand your concerns, but I assure you my qualifications." "Qualifications are one thing," Richard interrupted, his tone dismissive. "But this isn't just about qualifications. We're talking about a significant investment. I need to know that I can trust you to execute this vision." The weight of Richard's words settled heavily on Marcus's shoulders. It wasn't just the rejection that stung. It was the implication that his race somehow diminished his abilities in Richard's eyes. "I've worked on similar projects before, and I'm fully capable of delivering exceptional results," Marcus asserted, his voice now tinged with a mix of frustration and determination. Richard waved a hand as if brushing away Marcus's protests. "I'm sorry, but I just don't see it happening. I think it's best if we go in another direction." As the meeting concluded, Marcus left the conference room with his head held high, but inside, he felt hollow. The rejection echoed in his mind like a cruel refrain. Outside, the sun shone brightly, but all he could feel was the heaviness of disappointment. He walked through the bustling streets, the noise of the city a stark contrast to the turmoil in his heart. Later that evening, Marcus met his best friend Aisha at a cozy cafe. The aroma of coffee and freshly baked pastries filled the air, but Marcus couldn't muster the appetite for anything. He slumped into a chair, the weight of the day pressing down on him. "Hey, what's wrong?" Aisha asked, her brow furrowed with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Marcus sighed, running a hand through his hair. "It was a disaster, Aisha. Richard Thompson rejected my design. He said he didn't trust my experience." Aisha's eyes narrowed, her voice firm. "That's ridiculous. You've worked hard for your credentials. You're more than qualified." "It doesn't matter," Marcus replied, his voice tinged with bitterness. I could feel his doubts. It was like he couldn't see past my skin color. Aisha leaned forward, her expression softening. "Marcus, don't let his ignorance define your worth. You're talented, and your work deserves recognition. Channel that anger into something productive. Prove him wrong." Marcus looked into Aisha's eyes, finding strength in her unwavering support. "You're right. I can't let this hold me back. I need to focus on what I can create." As the night wore on, Marcus returned home, determination igniting within him. He cleared his desk, spreading out his sketch pads and pencils. The gentle hum of the city outside faded as he immersed himself in his work. With each stroke of his pencil, he envisioned a new project, a community center that would not only revitalize a neglected neighborhood, but also stand as a symbol of resilience and hope. Hours passed, and the sketches started to take shape, filled with vibrant colors and innovative designs. Each line represented his defiance against doubt, and with every detail, he poured his heart into a vision that transcended rejection. As the moonlight bathed his workspace, Marcus realized that his true strength lay not in the approval of others, but in his ability to dream and create. Marcus stood in the middle of the community center's makeshift event space, his heart racing with a mix of excitement and nerves. The walls, decorated with colorful posters showcasing his architectural designs, felt alive with the energy of the bustling crowd. Local leaders and residents had gathered, drawn by the vision he had shared with them. Not just a center for their community, but a symbol of hope and renewal. Aisha, his closest friend and unwavering supporter, moved gracefully among the attendees, her infectious smile encouraging conversations about the project. "Marcus, over here! We got a few more people who want to hear about your vision," she called, waving him over. As Marcus approached, he caught snippets of conversations filled with admiration. "Did you see those designs? They're breathtaking," one woman said, her eyes shining. "This could really change our neighborhood." "Absolutely," Aisha chimed in, her tone earnest. "Marcus has poured his heart into this project. It's not just about the buildings. It's about the people." "Thank you, Aisha," Marcus said, feeling a swell of gratitude. "I just want to create a space where everyone feels welcome." He stepped onto a small platform, a makeshift stage, and cleared his throat to gain the crowd's attention. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor of nerves. "When I first envisioned this community center, it was more than just a building. It was about creating a place where we could come together, share stories, and support one another. It's about revitalizing our neighborhood and fostering a sense of belonging." The crowd erupted in applause, and Marcus felt a wave of encouragement wash over him. He could see the hope in their eyes, and it fueled his passion. He continued, "But I need your help to make this vision a reality. We're organizing a fundraiser to gather the necessary resources, and I invite each of you to contribute in any way you can, whether it's through donations, volunteering, or simply spreading the word." As he spoke, he noticed a familiar face in the crowd, Richard Thompson, the wealthy client who had dismissed him only weeks before. Marcus's heart sank momentarily. The memory of that rejection was still fresh in his mind. He fought to keep his composure, focusing on the positive energy around him. "Together, we can create a space that reflects who we are as a community," Marcus concluded, stepping down from the platform to a round of applause. As he rejoined Aisha, she squeezed his arm excitedly. "You were amazing. They're really inspired by you." "Thanks, Aisha," he replied, a small smile breaking through his tension. "I just hope we can raise enough funds to actually get this project off the ground." As the evening progressed, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling of Richard's gaze on him. He caught glimpses of Richard mingling with other attendees, and a hint of regret seemed to shadow his expression. Marcus wondered if he was feeling the weight of his previous judgment. Meanwhile, Richard stood on the periphery, grappling with his thoughts. He overheard snippets of conversations praising Marcus's talent and vision. "This project will breathe new life into the community," one man said. "I can't believe someone so talented was overlooked." Richard's heart sank further. He had dismissed Marcus, believing he was merely inexperienced, but now he questioned his own judgment. The buzz surrounding the community center was undeniable, and he couldn't help but feel a twinge of regret for rejecting Marcus's initial proposal. As the night wore on, the energy in the room continued to build. Local leaders shared their support and pledged contributions, and the sense of unity was palpable. Marcus felt his confidence growing. Each kind word and supportive gesture reinforced his belief in the project and in himself. "Marcus," Aisha called, pulling him from his thoughts. "Come on, we have to take a picture with the community leaders. This moment is important." After the photo, Aisha turned to him, her face beaming with pride. "You're making a real impact, you know that? People believe in you, and it's beautiful to see." "I just want to prove that I can do this," Marcus said, his voice filled with emotion. "This is for all of us. We need this space, and I want to show everyone that our dreams matter." As the fundraiser came to a close, Marcus felt a sense of fulfillment wash over him. He had turned his rejection into a rallying cry, and the community support made all the difference. The evening had ignited a fire within him, one that fueled his ambition and determination to create a brighter future. Little did he know that this was just the beginning of a journey that would challenge him in ways he could never have anticipated. a journey where he would not only rise from the ashes of rejection, but would also inspire others to do the same. Months had slipped by since Marcus Johnson submitted his design for the International Architecture Award. As the date of the ceremony drew near, he found himself caught in a whirlwind of anticipation and anxiety. He sat at his desk, the late afternoon sun filtering through the large windows of his modest studio, casting long shadows over the sketches that had become his lifeline. Each piece of paper was a testament to late nights and early mornings, filled with the fervor of his dreams and the weight of his community's aspirations. Marcus leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair, feeling the tension in his shoulders. What if they don't see it? He murmured to himself, his voice barely above a whisper. What if all of this was for nothing? The nagging doubt was as persistent as ever, but he pushed it aside, reminding himself of the support he had received from Aisha and the community. They believed in him, and that belief had sparked a fire in him that he could not extinguish. Just then, his phone buzzed, jolting him from his thoughts. It was a message from Aisha. "You've got this. Remember, it's not just about the award. It's about your vision and the change you're bringing." A small smile crept onto his face as he read her words. He needed that reminder. The award was a symbol, yes, but the real victory was in the hope he had ignited within his neighborhood. As the day of the award ceremony arrived, Marcus dressed with care. He put on a tailored suit that fit him perfectly, a gift from Aisha after his first major project took off. He looked in the mirror, adjusting his tie, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of pride. This was more than just an evening of accolades. It was a celebration of resilience, of breaking barriers. The venue was magnificent, a sprawling hall adorned with glistening chandeliers and bustling with some of the most influential figures in the architecture world. Marcus stepped through the grand entrance, his heart racing as he spotted familiar faces among the crowd. The air was thick with excitement and expectation, and he could feel the energy buzzing around him. "Marcus!" Aisha's voice cut through the noise. He turned to see her making her way toward him, her smile bright and infectious. "You look incredible. I knew that suit would be perfect for you." "Thanks, Aisha. I'm just trying to fit in with all these big shots," he replied with a nervous chuckle, glancing around at the sea of well-dressed attendees. "You're not just fitting in, you belong here. Just remember, they're all here to see you shine," she encouraged, giving him a reassuring squeeze on the shoulder. As the ceremony began, Marcus's heart raced in tandem with the beats of the opening music. The host took the stage, his voice booming through the room as he introduced the nominees. Each name called was met with applause, but when Marcus's name echoed in the hall, a hush fell over the audience. He stood, heart pounding, and walked toward the stage, the weight of countless expectations resting on his shoulders. When the moment of truth arrived and the winner was announced, Marcus felt as if time had slowed. And the award goes to Marcus Johnson for his groundbreaking design of the community center. The applause erupted like a thunderstorm, and Marcus stood frozen for a moment, disbelief washing over him. Then, as if his legs had a mind of their own, he moved toward the stage, the weight of his journey flooding back. Every rejection, every sleepless night, every ounce of sweat and determination. Standing at the podium, he looked out over the audience, their faces a blend of awe and respect. "Thank you," he began, his voice steady despite the tremor of emotion beneath the surface. "This award is not just for me. It belongs to everyone who believed in the power of community, everyone who dreams of a better future." The crowd erupted in applause once more, and for Marcus, it felt like a moment of redemption. He was no longer just a rejected architect. He was a beacon of hope, a testament to resilience. In that moment, he knew he had not only overcome the prejudices that had been placed upon him, but had also turned his pain into purpose. Meanwhile, in a high-rise office across the city, Richard Thompson watched the ceremony unfold on a sleek television screen. As the accolades poured in for Marcus, a sinking feeling settled in the pit of his stomach. Each cheer from the audience felt like a reminder of his own biases, the walls he had built that kept him from seeing true talent. Guilt washed over him, and he turned away from the screen, unable to shake the weight of his own prejudice. With the weight of his newfound fame resting on his shoulders, Marcus Johnson stepped onto the stage of a packed auditorium, the spotlight illuminating his face. The audience, a diverse sea of aspiring architects and industry veterans, buzzed with anticipation. He took a deep breath, feeling the electric energy in the air, and began to share his journey, the struggles, the rejections, and ultimately, the triumph that had led him to this moment. "Good evening, everyone," he said, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "I stand before you not just as an architect, but as a testament to resilience. My journey hasn't been easy, but every obstacle has shaped me into the man I am today. I want to talk about the importance of diversity in our field. Architecture isn't just about buildings. It's about people, communities, and the stories we create together." As he spoke, Marcus could see nods of understanding and empathy ripple through the crowd. He shared anecdotes about his childhood, the influences that had ignited his passion for design, and the painful rejection he faced from Richard Thompson, a man he had once looked up to. "When Richard dismissed my work based on preconceived notions, he not only rejected me, but also the potential of what could be built in our communities," he continued, his voice rising with conviction. "But I channeled that rejection into something greater. I wanted to create spaces that uplift and empower." After his speech, Marcus was surrounded by eager young architects seeking advice, fueled by inspiration. They approached him with questions about his design philosophy, the challenges of navigating a predominantly white industry, and how he had managed to rise above the doubts cast upon him. He shared insights, encouraging them to remain steadfast in their dreams despite the barriers they might face. "Believe in your vision," he urged. "Let it fuel you when the world tries to dim your light." Meanwhile, Richard Thompson sat in his office, the walls lined with accolades that felt increasingly hollow. He had been following Marcus's rise from a distance, each news article and social media update a painful reminder of his past misjudgment. The image of Marcus, confidently addressing crowds and inspiring future architects, gnawed at him. He realized that his initial rejection had not only robbed Marcus of an opportunity, but it also cost him a chance to be part of something transformative. With a mixture of anxiety and hope, Richard sat down to draft an email to Marcus. "Dear Marcus," he typed, his fingers trembling slightly, "I have been reflecting on your recent success and the decisions I made in the past. I would like to discuss the possibility of collaborating on a new project. I believe we can do something significant together." He hesitated, uncertain if his words could convey the sincerity of his regret. After a moment of contemplation, he hit send. When Marcus received Richard's email, a swirl of emotions enveloped him. He felt a familiar sting at the mention of collaboration from the man who had once dismissed him based solely on race. Yet a part of him was curious. Had Richard truly changed, or was this merely an attempt to rehabilitate his image? He decided to meet Richard, albeit with caution. The meeting was set in a sleek conference room overlooking the city skyline. As Marcus walked in, he was struck by the opulence that surrounded him, a stark reminder of the world that had once turned him away. Richard stood up, a look of genuine remorse etched across his face. "Marcus, thank you for coming," he said, his voice low. "I've been following your work, and I must admit I was wrong. Your talent is undeniable." "Wrong is an understatement, Richard," Marcus replied, his tone even but firm. "You didn't just doubt my talent. You dismissed my entire being based on a bias you've carried for far too long. You had a chance to be part of a vision that could have changed lives, and you chose to look the other way." Richard shifted uncomfortably, the weight of Marcus's words pressing down on him. "I realize that now," he said softly, meeting Marcus's gaze. "In my position, I let my prejudices cloud my judgment. I see that now, and I want to make it right." "Making it right isn't just about this project," Marcus countered, his voice steady. "It's about confronting the biases that led to your decision in the first place. You need to understand that your actions have consequences." The air between them was thick with tension, a mixture of unresolved feelings and the possibility of change. Richard nodded, visibly shaken. "You're right," he admitted. "I've spent my career focused on the wrong things, and I see that now. I want to learn, to grow. Would you be willing to help me do that?" Marcus paused, contemplating the sincerity in Richard's eyes. It was a moment of reckoning for both men, a chance for Richard to confront his past and for Marcus to decide how to move forward. The conversation had opened a door, but the path ahead remained uncertain. They both knew that healing wouldn't happen overnight, and the scars of the past would take time to mend. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue across the city, Marcus Johnson stood in front of a large window in his studio, gazing out at the skyline. It had been a whirlwind of a few months since he won the International Architecture Award, and while his career soared, the shadows of doubt still lingered in his mind. He could feel the weight of every rejection he had faced, and the disdainful words of Richard Thompson echoed in his ears, but now they were just distant memories. Meanwhile, Richard sat in his opulent office, surrounded by framed certificates of achievement and accolades. Yet, a sense of unease gnawed at him. The industry he once dominated was beginning to shift, and the whispers of his peers grew louder, questioning his judgment. How could you dismiss Marcus Johnson? Look at what he's achieved, they would say, their voices laced with disbelief. Richard clenched his jaw, his reputation, once bulletproof, now under siege. The more he watched Marcus rise, the more he regretted his previous decisions. Maybe I misjudged him, Richard muttered to himself, running a hand through his thinning hair. The memory of Marcus's face, filled with passion and determination during that fateful meeting, haunted him. The reality was undeniable. He had let his biases cloud his judgment. He had to find a way to redeem himself. That evening, the prestigious gala loomed, and both men found themselves in the same room, though worlds apart. The elegant venue sparkled with chandeliers and the laughter of the elite, a stark contrast to the struggles Marcus had faced. As he arrived, the applause was thunderous, and he felt the warmth and support of those who believed in him. He was no longer just an architect. He was a beacon of hope for many aspiring professionals. Marcus, over here! Aisha waved him over, her eyes sparkling with pride. You're the star tonight. Just look at the crowd. Yeah, it feels surreal, Marcus replied, a hint of nervousness in his voice. But I can't shake off the feeling that Richard will try to make this about him. As if on cue, Richard made his way through the crowd, his presence commanding attention. He spotted Marcus and approached him, a forced smile plastered on his face. Marcus, I wanted to speak with you, he began, his voice steady yet laced with tension. What is it, Richard? Marcus replied, his tone cool and guarded. I know I've made mistakes in the past, Richard confessed, glancing around to ensure no one was eavesdropping. But tonight, I want to announce something important. I believe we can work together on a project that could change the community. Marcus raised an eyebrow, skepticism written all over his face. You expect me to just jump at your offer after everything? You dismiss my talent without a second thought. I know, Richard sighed, the weight of his regret apparent. But I've seen how you've transformed the narrative around architecture and community. I want to partner with you. This could show others that I've changed. Do you really think one partnership will erase your past actions? Marcus challenged, crossing his arms. What you did was more than a simple mistake. It's about integrity. The conversation hung in the air, thick with tension. Richard's face flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and determination. I want to prove myself, Marcus. Not just to you, but to everyone who doubted me. This is my chance to show I'm not the man I was. Your intentions may be sincere, Marcus replied slowly, but it's hard to trust someone who once doubted me simply because of the color of my skin. As the gala progressed, Richard took to the stage, and the room quieted. He cleared his throat, his eyes scanning the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice steady yet vulnerable. Tonight, I want to address my past mistakes. Gasps filled the room as Richard continued. I rejected a brilliant architect, Marcus Johnson, based solely on my prejudices. I realize now that my actions were not only wrong, but detrimental to our industry. I'm here to announce a partnership with Marcus, and I hope you'll support our endeavors to create spaces for those who have been overlooked. The crowd erupted into applause, but for Marcus, the moment was bittersweet. He felt a surge of mixed emotions. Could he really accept help from the man who had once turned him away? As the applause rang in his ears, Marcus's heart raced. He knew the world would see the partnership as a redemption arc for Richard. But what about his own journey? What would it mean for his integrity? Are you going to accept it? Aisha whispered, standing beside him, concern etched on her face. I don't know yet, Marcus replied, his gaze fixed on Richard, who was beaming at the crowd. It's complicated. I want to believe he's changed, but can I truly trust him? The gala continued, the music and laughter swirling around them. But for Marcus, the weight of his decision loomed large. The path ahead was uncertain, and he knew he had to choose wisely for the sake of his journey and the message he wanted to send to the world. As the evening at the gala unfolded, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. The hall was adorned with shimmering lights that danced off the elegant chandeliers, casting a warm glow on the faces of the attendees. Marcus stood backstage, feeling the weight of the moment pressing against him. He had come a long way from the rejection he had faced from Richard. Now, he was about to address a crowd that included industry titans and aspiring architects alike. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the spotlight, the applause fading into a reverent silence. Marcus looked out at the sea of faces, some familiar and others not, but all of them eagerly waiting for his words. Good evening, everyone, he began, his voice steady despite the fluttering in his chest. Tonight, I stand here not just as an architect, but as a testament to resilience. He paused, letting his words sink in. For too long, our industry has been marred by biases and preconceptions. We often forget that talent knows no race, no background, no limitations. The power of design lies in its ability to transform lives, and we must embrace diverse voices to truly reflect the communities we serve. The crowd murmured in approval, and Marcus felt a surge of confidence. He continued passionately. Each one of us has the responsibility to challenge our own biases, to question the status quo. We must ask ourselves, who is missing from our conversations? Who is being overlooked? It is our duty to create spaces that are inclusive, that celebrate diversity and resilience. As he spoke, he noticed Richard standing at the edge of the crowd, his expression a mixture of pride and apprehension. Marcus couldn't help but feel a twinge of satisfaction at the sight of his former adversary, now reduced to a spectator in a game Marcus had learned to play on his own terms. Just as Marcus concluded his speech to a roaring applause, a figure stepped forward from the throng of attendees. The room fell silent as a woman with determined eyes and a firm stance approached the microphone. "Excuse me, Marcus," she said, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "I have something important to share." The audience buzzed with curiosity, and Marcus felt an unsettling twist in his stomach. She continued, "I am a former employee of Richard Thompson's firm, and I cannot remain silent any longer. Richard has actively sabotaged Marcus's efforts to gain clients. He spread false rumors about Marcus's capabilities, tarnishing his reputation in the industry." Gasps echoed through the hall, and Marcus's heart raced. He exchanged glances with Richard, whose face drained of color, the weight of the accusations hanging heavily in the air. "I have proof," the woman insisted, pulling out documents that corroborated her claims. "Emails, communications, everything you need to see the truth." Richard's expression shifted from disbelief to panic as murmurs rippled through the crowd. The audience, once captivated by Marcus's inspiring words, now turned their attention to the unfolding drama. Marcus felt a mix of emotions: anger, vindication, and a deep sense of clarity. This revelation was not just about him. It was about the systemic issues that plagued their industry. "Richard," Marcus said, his voice calm but firm as he faced his former client, "you may have tried to undermine me, but the truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? This moment is not just about you or me. It's a wake-up call for everyone who has ever doubted someone based on their race or background." The audience fell into a hush as they processed the news, the air thick with tension. Richard, now cornered, struggled to find words. "You don't understand," he stammered, desperation creeping into his voice. I was just being cautious." Marcus shook his head, resolute. Caution should never come at the expense of opportunity. Your biases have cost us all. It's time for accountability, and it's time for change. As the evening wore on, the consequences of Richard's actions began to unfold. News spread quickly, and within days, his firm faced massive backlash, crippling his business and tarnishing his reputation. In stark contrast, Marcus emerged as a beacon of hope, launching his own architectural firm focused on community-driven projects. His vision was clear: designs that uplifted, inspired, and included all voices. Marcus reflected on the journey he had taken, the challenges he had faced, and the resilience that had propelled him forward. He was no longer just an architect. He was a leader, an advocate for change. And as he looked toward the future, he knew he was ready to build a world where talent and determination would always shine through, regardless of the shadows of prejudice.